Welcome to the Energy Shift Summit 2016. I'm your host, Sonia de la Torre, and I'm excited to share this powerful event with you and to help you shift your energy for more love, joy, and abundance in your life. And my guest today, he's a truly heart-centered business coach with a passion to help people achieve their goals and their dreams. And for over 35 years, he's helping business leaders to succeed. And very early on in his own career, he realized that when he focused more, or the more he focused on the success of others, the more his own career actually blossomed as well. And he teaches that business and leadership is made effective with the foundation of principle of value, the right principle and values. And he is I'm very happy that he's here because he's very down to earth, very authentic, very genuine. And he won several awards for, being in business for 35 years. He is a public speaker, and he is also the author of the book, Shortcuts Get You Lost. Mark Villareal. Welcome, Mark. I'm really excited that you're here with me today.
Well, thank you for having me, and thank you for that intro. That was real nice, but it's an honor to be on. I'm real excited.
Oh, me too. So let's get started then. And because a lot of people might not know you, why don't you start with just sharing a little bit about yourself, how you became so passionate about teaching about leadership. And we're going to go into that topic in just a little bit, but it's always nice to share a little bit of your own story.
Yes. Well, I am a firm believer that people have a hunger, whether they know it or not, an innate hunger that they want to be led. And they're looking for those. And when you find a true leader, you gravitate towards them, whether you know it or not. You don't sometimes know. And that's why when you talked about energy and bringing joy and bringing happiness, I think that's all about leadership. And if you find someone that can bring that and bring that to a work environment and create a culture around that, you will really just want to follow that. And everything that we do on our jobs, whether, and I like to call them a career, is difficult enough. So those leaders that can bring a good balance can really then your life becomes more fulfilling. And that's what's important. So I have had such good mentors growing up. The first one starting with my parents. I think everyone talks about their parents, and my dad was a very disciplined man, a drill instructor in the Army before he retired or got out of the service for that. But my mom was probably the biggest influence on me. I'm the youngest of many kids, so we each had our own relationship. But it really took me to realize that the lessons I was taught from childhood on how they relate to business today. Even the title of my book is A Lesson from My Mother. So, and I always say my mother was the best leadership coach who chose to be a housewife, and she took pride in that. But it was important for her to lay the foundation that was going to be for the rest of my life. And as I learned from my mentors, I'm like, they're teaching me nothing new. They're just bringing me back to the foundations I learned from childhood. And it starts from values and principles, because that's the foundation that everything should be built upon. My mother used to talk about values are what you live by and principles are what you stand on. So if you live your values, your principles become automatic, and and they should just happen like that. If it's ethics, integrity, I talk about humility. My mom would teach me to be humble. She would say that humility is a strength, not a weakness. And when I looked at the leaders that I gravitated towards, they led with humility, a servant's heart. And so I think great leaders want to pay it forward. So that's why I wrote my book, and that's why I speak, and that's why I do things. So hopefully that's a good foundation for you there.
Yes, absolutely. No. And that's, it's one of the reasons I really also invited you and wanted to have you, is like, it's the passion and the authenticity and the inspiration of what true leadership is also about. And it's not even only about being a leader in a big, business. I mean, I think leadership is everything. If you are a mother, you lead your children like your mom did.
Absolutely.
And, or in your relationship, in your working place, within yourself, you are first and foremost the leader of your own life. And the way you feel about yourself, and you get out in the world, your own energy that you basically share with yourself and others, it's about leadership. So I really felt compelled having you here too. So to talk a little bit about how we can actually shift into a more, into an energy of leadership, to instead of being like a victim or losing your power, or being just a follower. So yeah, you were just about to say something.
Right. Well, I was going to say, great example. And it's funny because I learned early on, and I still have to remind myself of something my mother always told me: never let anybody or anything steal your joy. So, because when you do, you give them power over you. So that's one of the first things that a leader has to do for themselves first, and then create that environment. Don't let things, and it's funny, I had a coaching session on this yesterday with somebody. But as I said, it really distracts you, and then we don't realize, when I give in things like that power over you, how it affects you mentally and your health and those type of things. But then my mom always talked about, be who you are. Show people how genuine you are. When people see that you're genuine, they will see that whether you're their leader or not, that you have struggles, that you have goals and objectives that you have to maintain, and that you even sometimes have to make hard decisions. But the more genuine that you are, then they understand it. And then finally, and something that some people think is taboo, is be personable. It's okay to understand someone's professional objectives, but understand their personal objectives as well, and take a big interest in them. When people, see that you want to know about, hey, how are your kids, and how are, you have a goal to go to Hawaii. Well, let's make that a professional goal here as well. And let's talk about how we can work and get there and celebrate that together. Let's talk about those things. It just really creates a culture where, even though you have to spend so much time at work, people at least come to an environment that they're comfortable in, they can strive in, they refer others. We do have sometimes people that aren't successful in our business. And I think about, I couldn't go out and do roofing all day. I wouldn't succeed. I don't have that skill set. Yeah. But it doesn't change who I am. Another lesson, when I was growing up, I was one time talking about someone that wanted to hang out with us, and I said something derogatory about, and my mom said, she called me Mijo, which my son, and she said, everyone's a 10. God doesn't make mistakes. So whether maybe there's some personalities or this, you start treating everyone with a 10 and show them respect, and you will be surprised on whether they become your friend or those type of things, just what develops from there. And so we teach that in business, that when we hire people, when we train people, when we eventually, maybe that person's not successful, as long as we treat them as a 10, then they leave. And I say that some of our best customers are former employees who weren't successful with us, but they were treated with respect, that they say, you're a good business, you're a great environment. And they actually, I've had them refer other people for employment here as well. So by doing that, it's just, everything's about that energy, that calmness that you can create, that culture, and that where people come to work excited. They talk about their successes in their personal lives, those type of things. It's just a great thing. And I think that when we can have the ability to do that, it pays it forward. And hopefully those people then pay it forward as well.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And as you mentioned, and for someone who listens and thinks this sounds great, can you give some tips on how to get started when because sometimes people are not aware of what are actually my values, and how can I look out, treat people like a 10. I love that, by the way, to just go out and just see everybody as a 10, including yourself, I would say, because then that's how you, and I love that because it gives a certain different perspective, and you send out a different energy. What tips would you give to someone who said, this sounds great, I want to incorporate that more in my life, regardless if you're a business owner or not, to,
Sure.
help the process get started?
Right. Well, I think it's some inner reflection. Meditation is always good. I'm a man of faith, and I start every morning with meditation in the Bible, for myself, and that gives me my energy to start and my calmness to start the day. But it's also what helped that with the self-reflection is, what are the values that are important to me, and start making a list of them. And there's so many values, and I think everyone would agree, yes, integrity, honesty, why wouldn't that be a value? But I actually encourage people to challenge yourself on that then, because first list your values, and then in my book, there's a poem that I wrote talking about starting the day looking in the mirror, and are you the person who you want to be, but ending the day looking in the mirror and saying, am I satisfied with how the day has gone? So that's really some of the big start that I try to coach people on. First, start with yourself, think about those values, and actually go out and try to live them those days, and then start keeping little check marks of, wow, that you will be surprised when you're challenged on your values. And that's where, that's the first part, lay that foundation. I talk about character a lot, and when I was younger, I talk about in one of the other lessons I learned about, be more concerned about your character than your reputation. And that was another lesson when my mom, she told me, because I was concerned about who I was hanging out with. I was like, my reputation's important to me. And she says, be more concerned about your character. Your reputation may open doors, but your character will keep you there. And so, those things that I had a great teacher, as you can see, and like I said, fortunate to have those mentors. But when you start reflecting on what values do I want to for myself, because whether you know it or not, you're being watched. And so whether you're a leader or not, you're being watched. And that's what my mom used to always tell me. People are watching you, and they make judgments about you. So how is it that you want to reflect yourself when they say, wow, that guy's pretty genuine. Wow, that guy lives his values. And that's why humility is such a value, because first I want to show that I can learn from everybody. But if maybe I mess up on a value, I want to be honest about it and say, I apologize. I have this as a value and I just didn't live it. And so because of humility being a value, I want to hold myself accountable and apologize to you.
Yeah, and what you just said, I think is so important. I really want to emphasize that to be a leader, a true leader, really means also to take responsibility. And that does not mean you're perfect and you have always to be like, that guy that does everything right. That
Sure.
As a leader, you have the courage and the maturity to, admit when you've done something wrong, or you made a mistake or whatever. And that the part of taking responsibility is so important. And I think when it comes to our own energy, or what we feel inside, or what we do outside, is really stay, and you mentioned genuine a few times, to really be genuine with your own inner truth. And when you do that, whatever your truth is, because I agree with you, there are so many different values. There are a few values that we would say, well, that's a no-brainer, but everybody's different. And there are certain values that are more important to me than to you and to another person. But as long as you are aware of them and you live them, that's really when you make a change. So I like the idea of sitting down and writing them down and get more clarity, and to just, try as much as you can to do it. And when you are not perfect, you just say, hey, that's what I did, and I'll keep trying, right? Or I'll keep.
Absolutely. In my book, I actually teach that the lessons, and it starts on the top, because in a business, I teach it's whoever's at the top is driving things down. So that's very important. So we have to realize that as leaders. But in the book, it starts where the leader has signs on his walls of his top 4 values, so to speak. He has them in value statements, but he puts them out there because he wants to show people, I want to hold myself accountable to this. And that's really a test. But what happens in the book is all the managers start doing it, not because they're told, because they live it, they see him living it, and they're like, I want to be like that. And that's where I said people want to be led, and it's infectious. And that's what we teach is the true test is not do you have values and not do you live them, is can you put them out there and say to everybody, here's really who I want to be, and even help me point out when I'm not living this, because that's why humility is a good one, because I'm like, please, hopefully I show that I'm open for feedback because I want to continue to grow as well.
Yeah, love that. Yeah, me too. And because you also, when I introduced you, that when you realized that the more you were actually focusing on serving others or the success of others, that made actually a difference in your own business. And I would like you to share a little bit about that, because somehow it's a concept that people understand, but often they're so busy with, I have to make the money, I have to become successful. So they're so busy with that sometimes the serving or the really helping people gets a little bit to the side, with the fear that if we do that, we lose out on something. But it's actually the totally opposite, right?
It is totally the opposite. If you want long-term consistent success, so that's where shortcuts get you lost. You could take shortcuts for short-term gains, but if you want long-term success, and I've worked for different managers, but not every manager is a leader. So a leader is a coach. A leader is one that understands these concepts, and especially servant leaderships. And there's great ones out there. So like I said, I had some very good mentors. And so if everything is built correct, then everyone's goals and objectives that you're working for, and and I say working for because I work for my employees, is how I see it. My job is to provide leadership, to provide resources, provide quick follow-up and answers and education and coaching. And the more I do that and I'm focusing to get you to your goals and objectives, then mine come naturally. And I will say this, though, is you have autocratic managers out there, do as I say, not as I do. And I've worked for some of those. They're not happy people. And their people aren't happy either. So it's quickly to define if I want one long-term environment that people love working for us and employment, and that we're successful and we're driving success. It really just showed over time. And the great thing about the work environment is you can create a culture that we even have a culture of give us 110%, and we'll do everything to advance your career with us, with our corporation, or whatever next career you want to do. That's if you want to own your own business, we want to be a part of that. That's okay. Give us 110%. And so we've had 4 employees that started at the bottom level that eventually went on to be managers for our corporation worldwide. And people are usually like, some business leaders may say, well, I don't want to lose those people. Now, we had people wanting to work here because of that culture. And it always brought new innovation and new ideas for the new people coming in. And it was just, it gets to a point that you can't stop it. It's like, it's just, rolling and rolling, and it's just a great environment.
Yeah, great. Yeah, I love it. And it's like, and also from my own experience, and you've worked with so many people, sometimes we are aware of something and understand it on a logical level, but then it's still, like to really apply it and to let go of the attachment that we have to do something or to have to, become successful in a certain way. And I want, you mentioned a few times with the shortcuts, and I want to go a little bit into that. It's also part of your book because, and I know the little story how, maybe you share the little story with why you took the shortcut. I saw that once you're sharing that when you came back from school or something. So I like that. Maybe you share that, because what I also see often, the shortcuts is also a shorter vision that we think, oh, this is what I have to do now. But in the end, it's like the vision, the longer term result or profit or whatever you want to call it, often gets missing when we just try the shortcut.
Yeah, and that's important. So the quick story of when I was a kid, I going home from school and always saw these kids that lived on my same block cut through the woods. I never took that way, but one day I wanted to get home earlier, and I thought, well, they're taking a shortcut and getting home sooner than I did. And I tried it and went into the woods, and I got lost and got scared, as a little kid does, had to backtrack. And that's the thing about a shortcut, is when you get lost, you have to backtrack to where you started. So it actually takes you longer. My mom was very afraid when I got home, where have you been? And then she was angry. And then she taught me the lesson about shortcuts get you lost. And about the danger is that sometimes when you take the shortcut and have short-term success, it creates bad habits. And then that makes you blind to the long-term success you could have had, and you never realize that you didn't have it. So that's why sharing a vision is very important in life. What's my vision on where I want to go? And I lay that out, and we talk about it all the time. And that's important in business as well. We share a vision. What's the long-term goal and objectives? But what's important is you don't just share it and then never talk about it. You talk about the milestones. You talk about the progress. So in my personal life, I talk about that right in the book and those type of things. But in business as well. So we talk about, we're not there yet, but that's where we want to be. But look at these steps, and we're making progress, and let's celebrate this. So you speak to that as well. So it keeps everybody focused. And there's a book I read called Rockefeller Habits, but it has a saying on there, but that's so true to me. And I have the sign on my wall that says, until your people start mocking you, you haven't said your message enough, which means I repeat myself constantly. And I do it for a reason. I even tell them, if I see someone that says, oh, Mark says this, kind of mocking me, I would take pride in that. And I'm like, all right, they're getting it,
Exactly.
So, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I love a few things that you said. Just the last piece, so true that, and I as you do, meditation is one of the tools that I start my day to shift my energy. And I keep talking about it and repeating it because there is never too much repetition. And if somebody is mocking us, it means we're making an impact. So I totally love that. And you also said something that was so important. I really want to repeat that. When we take a shortcut sometimes, and we have a short success, or something works for a moment, but what we often create is a bad habit. So it's nothing long lasting. And that's really important, because so many people come, and it doesn't matter in which field you're looking for solutions, but they often want a quick fix. They just want to have a quick solution. And they might have it for a moment, but usually, or very often, they fall back. And what you said, they have to basically walk all the way back and start fresh. So in a way, they want a shortcut because they want to save time or save money or save energy, whatever they want to save, although they in the end have to spend even more.
Right, it exhausts their energy, is what it does. I mean, you do that in a car, you're going to burn more fuel, and you're going to wear and tear on the car. So it does the same to our bodies and to our minds, to our stress. And decision-making processes are important. And so that's why it's important that in everything we do, and I believe that we provide, and where I say that I work for my people, is to provide them a roadmap to success. And so we build roadmaps and saying, here's what success looks like. And I say it's like a GPS. So GPS, you may be traveling, but there's an accident on the freeway and you have to get off. But that GPS tells you where to get back on again, to get back on that roadmap. So those are the things that we try to provide and that I coach to.
Yeah, I like that. It's like having our own GPS, we might call it intuition, might call it the higher calling, the inner voice, whatever you want to call it.
Absolutely.
Access that, to have that, because we're always gonna, everybody struggles with obstacles. There's always something that happens. Life happens, and I think the difference between being really making a difference or being a leader means that you can go with or through the obstacles instead of just, getting hit and fall and get stagnant, because it doesn't mean that a successful person that you might see, or a leader, thinking, oh, this person is lucky, this person has this. It just is a different, mindset, attitude, but also skill and coaching that took time to get you there? I think I would like for you to share a little bit your experience, because you have done this for so long. Often we see the end results of another person and think, oh yeah, it's easy for them, right? But they don't see what took to get them. Do you have a similar experience when you work with your clients?
Well, I'll give you a little 20,000 foot level, because you quoted something I actually said yesterday. Life happens. So we're doing some training for some people, and I use the same to my son-in-law always about life's not convenient. So it doesn't, things don't happen when you want them to happen. They happen when you don't expect them. So the best, and that really teaches you the best that you can be prepared for them. But what I try to show people is that I talk about I'm successful because I've had a lot of failures. And I'm successful because I've tried things and been courageous to try them. Be of good courage is one of the things that always sticks in my mind. But learning from them and understanding what they are. And that's why when we talk about sharing the vision and talking about, hey, here's how we're going, and keeping saying the same things constantly, because I can point back to where I thought, wow, I can't believe this roadblock. I can't believe that. And when you look back to it and where you've come from, it's just amazing how far you've come. So there's several different stories with clients. And I say that some of my best relationships with clients have started on the wrong side of the fence, where it started from they weren't happy about a situation. But it started where you first listen, you're honest about it, you apologize, but you talk about, we want to be that professional company that we want to see about that. Sometimes there's bumps in the roads, but how do we respond to that? We'll show you how professional that we are. So let's talk about where we go from there and what we can do. And when you do those things, once again, because you're being genuine, you're being humble, you're understanding the situation. When you do that and rebuild it, you build actually a stronger relationship than what you might have had if everything gone perfect. So, and that's the same with people as well. And so, those are the things that I teach, and I point to my own different things in business on, here's where I had a struggle, here's where I had this, here are some of the things we tried, but we're successful because we tried to be innovative and courageous to do those things. We tried to do it with a good roadmap to success, and we take calculated risk, not just blind risk. And, so we teach all those processes.
Yeah, great. And I love what you said about you're so successful, or you had your success because you failed as well. And I think, correct, unfortunately, so many of us grew up with that conditioning of fear or programming that we are so afraid of failing that we often don't even try anything. So, and to really hear that you actually, in my opinion, is if you don't fail at something, you're not doing really much, and you're never going to really succeed, because it's the same way that we learned how to walk when we were little. I mean, we didn't learn that in a day. If we would have said, oh gosh, I didn't make it right away, we would have never walked. We never gave up. We just took another step. Right? So I love that. And to really encourage people to see it in a way that if you fail, that's great, because that means you're a step closer to succeeding.
Right. Well, my dad, I'll bring one of his influences, and he was the bravest man, the strongest man I knew up until he passed of pancreatic cancer, and even then wouldn't take his medicine because he wanted to be alert, and the doctors were amazed and that type. But he just always had that strong personality. But he would tell me that fear is between success and failure, and you decide which way you go. And he was a man with an 8th grade education that owned his own business and retired and bought a market, and that became successful, and this didn't let life stop him. And so a great example that in what you speak to there.
Yes, great. No, thank you. I could keep talking to you for hours. I don't want to miss that you do have also something special for our audience today. You have a gift that you brought to us. It has to do with your book, Shortcuts Get You Lost. Why don't you share a little bit about what it is?
Well, what I'd like to do is make available a chapter of the book, and I have many favorite chapters of the book, but one of the chapters talks about the current and the rocks, and it relates to the story of whitewater rafting that a lot of the instructors out there will teach you that mentally, and this is where energy comes in and what you focus on. So if you're focusing on the rocks because you're like, I don't want to go by the rocks, you'll actually start drifting towards the rocks. And so they teach you focus on the current because that's your flow to safety. That's the safest route. And so that's what I teach that in the chapter, because then that's what we need to do as leaders, is to keep our people's focused on the current. And so it's the very foundation from there that starts from that. And that's where I talk about looking in the mirror. That's in that chapter, and reflecting on yourself, not only how you start your day, but then how you finish your day. And another part of the chapter is, and sometimes I tell a lot of sports stories, but it's of a successful coach that had some championship teams, but it talks about whose success are you focusing on, yours or theirs, yours or the team's. And that coach focused on the team's success, and that's why they had not just one championship, but many championships. So that's what the chapter talks about, and it excites me, for those environments and to share it. Like I said, leaders want to pay it forward, and that's why I'm happy to share that.
Thank you so much. And I love, and we spoke about that before, this metaphor of don't looking at the rocks, look at the currents, and we say energy follows attention. It's the same thing. What you focus on, that's what you get more of. So I definitely gonna download that myself, and you can get this free gift from Mark. It's just by clicking the link below this interview and below this video, and I highly recommend you to do that, and I can't wait to read it. And I hope you got a lot of good value and information today from us as well. And Mark, do you have any last thoughts or inspiration, anything that you would like to share with us today before we bring this interview to a close?
I'm going to finish it with another story with my mom. As a little kid, I used to, you want to impress your mom. Hey, I want to be a fireman. That's great. I want to be a policeman. And it changed weekly. Yeah, I want to be a baseball star. But one time, as my mom saw me maturing, but still as a little kid, she says, my son, Mijo, is what she called me, so it's Spanish more. But she says, I know you want to do all these things, and I'll always be, I love you unconditionally. But the one thing I want you to be? And I'm like, what, Mom? I want you to be a good example. And if you could be a good example, whatever you do, then you will touch my heart. And so I share that because think about that if you're being a good example today. And hopefully my mom's smiling at me today. So that's my parting story there.
Thank you so much, Mark. Thank you very much for being here. Thank you for sharing. I hope we both have been a good example today. And
thank you.
Value. And thank you for joining us, for watching. Remember to get that chapter of his book. Just click the link. I wish you a fantastic day. I'm Sonia Bueno de la Torre, and I look forward to seeing you soon again. Much love. Bye-bye. Bye, Mark. Thank you.
Thank you.